Welcome to Leadership DNA, a podcast for those who aspire to be a better leader. Alongside Arturo Gomez, I'm Rob Cressy. Today's topic, servant leadership. And Arturo, I am so excited about this one. Let's start with this. What is servant leadership?
I think it is one. Let me just tell you. I think that servant leadership, or the idea of servant leadership, I think started to emerge probably around 10 years ago. Really, like where you started hearing the drumbeat a lot more. It started getting louder, and a lot of this was brought to the surface by our guy Simon Sinek, and through famous book of his, Leaders Eat Last. And, I think for me, when I read that book and when I started to get, identify with this concept, a lot of this was the bones and the reason for my desire to actually do this podcast. And so a lot of the fundamentals and the basics and the kind of DNA attributes that we talk about from a leadership standpoint, I think a lot of it revolves around this specific concept about servant leadership. And so it's the idea that a leader is putting really everything aside for the good or for the advantage of the team. And so there's a lot of traits or characteristics that bake into that specific, into identifying as a servant leader. But in a nutshell, at its core, that's essentially what it is. It's leaders unselfishly putting the team before anything else and allowing that to be the way that they manage and educate and coach and mentor the people around them.
Yeah, and for me, very simply put, the way that I see servant leadership is all in the name, serving. And I'm someone that I relate to in my style of leadership. And even though there's a DNA of it, servant leadership is one of my top ones because I love to serve. I love to help. One of my goals is to help 10 million people. And as part of that, I am there for others. And there's a lot of different ways that this was created inside of me. And there's some simple ones. One, this is a very natural thing for me. So I don't have to wake up every single day and say, all right, Rob, now it's time to help people. That for me, it's a natural thing that I want to do because I do care the most, because I want to give to others things that I've experienced or ways that I can help make your life better. Number two would be my background in improv from Second City. One of the foundational things to improv is yes and, meaning we build up on others' ideas. But also as part of that is when you're on stage doing a skit or a performance with somebody else, you are there to support your team and your other members. And it's actually been foundational to my success as a host or in the speaking world, because I always know that my goal is to make you look as good as I can. And it's not from a place of lack or scarcity or anything, but it comes from support. So for me, servant leadership is support and helping others and how I can be both who I create myself as every single day, as well as the things that I do and the way that I show up for my team. So from the way that I listen, or I have empathy, or my heightened self-awareness, or the way that I'm a natural community builder where I say, you know what, let me bring all of us together so that we can all together raise our tide in what we want to create.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think, so what are some of the characteristics that are obvious, that are at the top of mind for you, for servant leadership?
So one of it is, it's who you are. It's the DNA of the helpfulness. So there's caring, like you legitimately want to help these people in Arturo. It's one of the things that I love doing this podcast with you is when we get to break down our leadership styles and the way that we think about it, what I hear from you, even in the subtext, is how much you care about the people that you work with. And caring comes in different forms because it can be candid communication, it can be tough love, it can be leading by example and showing them the way. But for me, caring in heart is at the core of this for me because you can feel it with servant leaders. Servant leaders are present. They're not absent. And these are some things that we talk about over and over again, but it becomes part of who you are. And this becomes ultimately part of your culture and your core values and the DNA of your organization.
Yeah, 100. I mean, that's resonates so true. I mean, I think if you don't care or if you don't have some extreme magnitude of caring, the idea of servant leadership becomes very difficult. And the idea of caring for others and sometimes putting yourself to the side is, again, fundamentally one of the more important pieces to this. And so, you bring up, some of the dialogue, organic dialogue that you and I have around leadership and our businesses. And, I can't really see things through another lens. All I see is that for me, the caring piece is it's just critical. It's exactly where I want to be. Like nothing else really matters. And through that caring, I know that success is on the other side somewhere. But I first and foremost, the most important thing that comes to mind literally every day, because there's different personalities and different relationships that I'm managing literally on a daily basis. And those people and the circumstances around the relationship that I have with those individuals will surface at the very beginning of the day. And part of my day is sculpted in terms of like, how am I going to check in with this person? How am I going to get them to where they need to be? And then it's once I feel like they're on the right path, okay, now who's next? Who's the next person I need to like push along, and who's the next person I need to find? It's like, have you ever seen the video of like the mother duck kind of pushing the baby ducklings across the street? She's always concerned to make sure that everybody's in single file and that everybody has help and that everybody has everything that they need to get to the other side. And so I feel like that at times. I feel like that's just part of who I am. Like there's nothing unnatural about that for me. It's 100% natural. The other, and it's funny. I mean, I had a conversation with one of my employees, text me on Monday and was like, "Hey, do you have time for dinner tonight?" And it was kind of impromptu on his part. I was like, I'm already committed to some stuff. I said, "How about tomorrow?" So we went to dinner last night, and his questions were revolving about like, what can he do to become a better leader, to create more career opportunity, career path. And I went on for about an hour and spoke to him and really just tried to get through in his mind and have him really understand the areas that I think that he needs to really work on, and that his commitment to working on those areas is only going to be, predicated on him truly wanting something different for the people around him, not just for himself. And so that is, we left that dinner last night. I felt like there was some real breakthrough with him, and he sent me a text last night and this morning, and a lot of it seems to have sunk in. Now it's up to him to test some of those concepts and to really try to invigorate and empower the people around him. But caring is fundamentally one of the most important things. And I think, when we talk about other characteristics, some of the other stuff that really seems, there's probably 10, 15 that could be identified if you Googled it. What are the main characteristics of servant leadership? I picked a couple that really resonated with me. The next one would be empowerment. It is beyond the caring piece. It's making sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can, whether it's tools and resources, whether it's energy, coaching, mentoring, to just make sure that the people around you have what they need to be successful. And a lot of it is not tools and resources. Some of it is oftentimes words of encouragement, having positivity and optimism around otherwise dark moments. And so those are the things that I think really create true pathway and opportunity for servant leadership. Relationship building is another key, I think, ingredient. Like, people who are servant leaders care what relationship they have with their teammates. It's not, hey, they're subordinate to me, they work for me, they're over here, they're in that department, they're this, they're that. It's, if you really plan on trying to actually do something that is groundbreaking and transformational, then the relationships that you have with the people in the organization need to be glue tight. They really need to be glue tight. There needs to be such trust, and I say adoration, not in an arrogant sense, but in a sense of like where people need to admire their leaders because of the actions that they carry and the words that they say, and that admiration is part emotional fuel when you need it. It's like, I want to make sure that I'm performing at the highest level because of my admiration for this individual. I want to make sure that I'm performing at the highest level because this individual has always been there for me. And so people have a really difficult time letting off the gas when they feel that, the relationship with whomever's in that leadership position is so, infinitely strong. And so how do you get it? How does that relationship get strengthened? It's through the things that we just talked about. It's through this caring aspect. It's through being genuine. It's being organic. It's through real conversation about, who they are, what they aspire to have, where their lives are going, how their family is. I have another employee who's struggling with. He's got a newborn at home. They're struggling with some medical issues with the baby. I mean, it's really heartbreaking. The baby is going to be fine, but it's, they're having to go through some craziness right now. And him and I have scheduled, to do some tastings for a concept that we have coming up. And he texts me and he says, "Hey, I might be a little late on this." I said, "Forget about all that shit. Like, I don't care. Like, we can do the opening of this restaurant. I'm not worried about that. Just throw that shit to the side. We'll open when we open. And by the way, what we're talking about now is not going to cause any delays. So it may require you and I to get busy on a weekend. It may require you and I to, figure out when we can find some time allocation." I said, the most important thing in my mind right now is that you're at the hospital with your wife and your child. I said, nothing else matters. And so that's, I think, the reason why you're the capability, it brings the capability of having these relationships, because if those words coming out of your mouth are real and true, that the receiving end of that is extraordinary, because people don't talk like that. People always put their ego and their agenda, and, hey, you're disrupting my budget, my process, my timeline. Who gives a shit about any of that? Well, let's regroup. Let's regroup when you're mentally in the place that you need to be. So it's, these are the things that that really determine the difference between people who are managing and leading.
And I love everything that you just said. And I'm going to sort of wrap a bow on what's coming up for me. All of this ultimately becomes around a standard of excellence. When you're a servant leader and you care so much, Arturo, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the results or the experiences that we deliver for our clients or our end customers. And we want that to be a 15 out of a 10 experience. And we have such an attention to detail and the system and structures that we have in place to deliver that, whether that's relationship building or a client service delivery, ultimately becomes the standard for how you do what you do and how you show up every single day, including how you are interacting with every single person, which is why I love when you took the caring and the empathy on what that person is experiencing. And you're right, it's like, whoa, business means nothing compared to your family and your child right there. But to me, that's the standard of who you are. Not everybody operates from that. And one of the things that a coach said to me once that always is top of mind for me, he goes, Rob, the things that you do unconsciously are very uncommon. The rest of the world does not operate on the level that you operate. And I wanted to mirror this back to you, Arturo, because the conversation that we're having, not everybody is a servant leader and not everybody has this standard of excellence to where we are so intentional and attention to detail oriented about every single one of these aspects in our business and in our life, and quite frankly, the DNA of how we see our leadership. Because to me, this is ultimately what makes us great leaders, is because we care so much, we are willing to go and do and create all of these things to make this such an experience for every single person who touches our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, I want to be clear. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we talk about on this, on this pod that I do think can be learned and can be adapted and put into your playbook for sure. I think that there are some things, and I've mentioned in the past, that I think that leaders are born. Leaders are born. Now, I think you either have an extreme emotional connection to the energies around you when you're born, or you don't. And some people are just naturally empathetic. They understand when they walk into a room, they can feel happiness, they can feel sadness. And so those people have a tremendous leg up because, everything that they do for the most part is natural, is natural. They act and behave in natural ways, and their actions are just leadership type behavior right out of the jump. And so I do think that things can be learned. I do think that people can build and shape their persona so that they become better, that they become more in line with the needs, the requirements of a leader. The same guy that I had dinner with last night, I said, hey, listen, one of your biggest problems is that you have a chip on your shoulder. And I said, if you do me a favor, I said, go home tonight, find some caulk in your garage. And I said, smooth out your shoulders, because the only way to get through the door to the next level is to have smooth shoulders to get through that door. I said, the chips on your shoulder, you're not going to get through that door. And so it was something that I came up with that analogy like quickly, but it resonated with him so deeply. He was like, oh man, I think I really understand. And I'm like, listen, get rid of all that ego, all those chips, all the resentments, all that fuss that's not allowing you to connect and build relationships with your team in the way that you should. I said, get rid of it, smooth it out, because the only way that you can squeeze through that small door to the next level is by you got to be slick. You got to be smooth, man, to the next level. So, I love it. I love this subject. It really is, the baseline for. I think when the topic of servant leadership came up, or when I started reading about it, probably a decade or maybe even more, it started to resonate with me in ways that I couldn't explain, because it started to explain a lot about the behaviors that I had personally. It started to explain why I had certain successes in life, why I gravitated towards wanting to care and mentor and coach people, it started to explain a lot of that there was this, that this was actually subject matter, that this was real, this was a real thing, and people were studying it. So I think, you and I spoke about, this is still a hot topic, and probably more so today than ever, because I think the requirement for people to start showing leadership tendencies is becoming, the drumbeat is getting louder. It's like, if you really want career advancement, you really need to understand a lot of these fundamentals and be able to play nice in the sandbox, and to be, not only to be somebody who can lead an organization, but that can also be a real contributing factor in a well-oiled machine. And so this will continue to be something that people in self-help and business platforms and in many different environments will continue to study, continue to talk about, will continue to try to figure out how to crack the code. Um, but I think it starts fundamentally. There are some genetic things that I think that are wildly helpful for some people who've literally just been born a certain way. But I do think that in order to get to the next level for individuals that may just be aspirationally trying to get there, with or without some of these God-given gifts, is you got to be 100% willing to give it all up.
I love it. So now let's get to our action item or takeaway. And Arturo, I've got two of them. Number one, you talked about get to the next level. And one of the things that I've created is a community of servant leaders who want to grow in their business and their life together. You can go to creatingunlimited.com and join us. And Arturo, what I love so much about this community is the energy, the way the people are showing up, and how impact driven the people are there. And just think about what it's like on a consistent basis to have a bunch of other leaders all rowing their boats in the same direction, where we get to learn together. And then number two, I love the analogy that you gave, and I can even draw on an experience I had about 2 months ago of something that was a real big unlock for me. And it's something that's going to be a constant theme in my life, and quite frankly, the majority of leaders. And it is all around letting go. So you've got that chip on your shoulder, or in my world, is it the fear? Is it the judgment? Is it the self-limiting belief? Is it the not enoughness? Is it the scarcity? Is the expectations? And I let go of something really big 8 weeks ago. And all of a sudden, it completely changed my paradigm in how I'm showing up every single day. And I'm someone who's been doing the inner work for more than a decade. And the reason why I share this is the next level will always require something different from you. And oftentimes we think it's, what do I need to add? But what I've learned, what helps the most, is what do I need to let go of? So my encouragement is to audit yourself. What is that chip, or what is that thing that you need to let go of right now that can help you be a more servant leader and create that next level for yourself? What about you, Arturo? What's your action item or takeaway?
By the way, I love your action item. I also think that anybody who's listening, please take Rob up on joining this community. I think it's very helpful when you're surrounding yourself by like-minded individuals that are in pursuit of excellence, certainly in this specific area that we're talking about. So I think my action item is Google it, research it, find what the common majority is saying in terms of the attributes associated with servant leadership. Lock in on 2 of them that may resonate with you, and see how well you perform. Just again, like to your point, do a little self audit, see if you're actually performing those. Ask. I think there's so much wealth of information and honesty and truth when you ask other people, because we don't look at ourselves the same way that other people view us, and that's just a fact. And so I think and look at that checklist. And if you really feel like you've mastered two of them, move on to the next two and see where those sit and how you're performing in those specific areas. And if you're really truly passionate about leadership, you can't get to that next level unless you're a servant leader. I mean, that's just a fact.
100%. And Arturo, where can everybody connect with you?
The best place is going to be LinkedIn, Arturo Gomez.
And we would love to hear from you about your philosophy or DNA of servant leadership. Where does this live in your world or your team? And what is your framing and perspective of it? You can hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn @Rob Cressy.